Since the dawn of time, holiday movies have always been a thing. It makes sense, right? Making a film for a specific holiday is an easy way to make the big bucks. Not only do people have more free time on the holidays and are thus more likely wanting to see a movie, but having your movie associated with a holiday means people will revisit it potentially every year. But on the other hand, if you don't make a good film, then your film's going to be lost to time. Such is the case for Freebirds. I'll bet that most of my fellow Americans have at least heard of this movie. I remember back in 2013, it was pretty heavily advertised. But how many of you actually watched it? Well, a decent amount, evidently, because it made $110 million at the box office. And that's off a $55 million budget, which is actually kind of impressive. And a lot more than I thought it would be. But that doesn't matter. What does matter is that I haven't heard a single person mention this film in the 8 years that it's been out. I think it's time I found out why that is. As mentioned earlier, Freebirds is an animated movie released in 2013 by Relatively Media in Real FX Animation Studios. Relatively Media is a pretty big production company that has a history of assisting with projects such as Paul Blart Mall Cop, The Pursuit of Happiness, Step Brothers, and so many more. Just check out this Wikipedia article. God damn. But let's not worry about them, because Real FX is who we really want to look into, as they're the driving force behind the film. They've only made 3 standalone films as of 2021. Curque de Soleil, Worlds Away, which I will just be referring to as Worlds Away because I don't know what the hell that is, which was released in 2012. Freebirds, released in 2013, and The Book of Life, released in 2014. After The Book of Life, they've mainly been keeping themselves afloat with contract work on films like Ugly Dolls and Sherlock Gnomes. Out of their main trio, Freebirds stands out both as the worst reviewed film and their most successful. Obviously, the box office can be explained by the holiday release, but why the 19% on Rotten Tomatoes? Hopefully, we have a so bad it's good movie on our hands, or I'm about to waste an hour and a half. So after the company intro credits, we get a B-movie-esque intro that sets the tone pretty well, I think.
The following film is a work of fiction. It is loosely based on historical events and is in no way meant to be historically accurate. Except for the talking turkeys. That part is totally real.
Then we meet our main character, Reggie. Reggie is a turkey who lives on a farm, who has just discovered the tradition that is Thanksgiving dinner. Reggie is also played by Owen Wilson, who just cares so much about this role. It hurts. Like, actually, his performance in this movie is fucking painful.
You don't get it! They're fattening us up so they can eat us!
That's it. You just found out your entire species is being farmed for sustenance of another species, and that is your warning to your fellow turkeys. No wonder no one believes him. Failure! Now, I know this may be a little hard to believe, but our main character of this movie is a bit of an outcast. I know. It's a bold artistic move, not seen in any other movie, ever. But I'm gonna hear the movie out on this one. He's so much of an outcast that the other turkeys won't even let him in on the giant orgy they have every night. I know, but one fateful night, the turkey elder also discovers the truth, and Reggie is just so happy. He is elated that he's been proven right.
Finally, after all these years, that's what I've been waiting to hear. Reggie was right.
So evidently happy. For whatever reason, the other turkeys decide to sacrifice Reggie for the humans instead of making a run for it because he's the anti-corn or whatever. Also, it's daytime now and the blinding lights are also gone, I guess. Sure, whatever. Reggie is dragged away, begging for his life.
No!
Ladies and gentlemen,
Heart-wrenching, I know. However, instead of being brought to the slaughterhouse, he is brought to the President of the United States and discovers he will be the pardoned turkey in the yearly pardoning turkey tradition, which is a thing, apparently. Reggie is then brought to Camp David, which we are told by this text down here that I didn't even notice until the third time I watched this movie, and I was so confused why the president was here instead of the White House. but I guess this is Camp David, which is I guess Camp David's a military base or something. Whatever, doesn't matter. Point is, we're here. Oh yeah, the president's daughter, by the way, is kind of extremely annoying and terribly unfunny. Except for this joke.
I will never, ever leave you. Oh, wait, TV!
I like that one. Anyway, Reggie then discovers the wonders of TV, specifically this soap opera which mirrors his own life. I really love this soap opera, by the way. The over-the-top parody is hilarious. The art style's great, and I really like the detail of having the station's watermark on the bottom left. That's a nice touch there, I like that. Reggie also discovers pizza, which he also immediately falls in love with. Who can blame him, right? Yeah, you know? Except for the fact that it's Chuck E. Cheese pizza. No, seriously, Chuck E. Cheese has product placement in this movie. Anyways, Reggie gets nice and cozy in his new pizza-eating, TV-watching life. Until one fateful night, he's kidnapped by some guy who just waltzed on into the place because Reggie forgot to close the door. You forgot to close the door. Fucking dumbass. The kidnapper is revealed to be another turkey, Jake, played by Woody Harrelson, who proceeds to tell Reggie about the great turkey, who is the greatest of all turkeys, who gave him a mission to stop Thanksgiving and save not just 10 turkeys or even 100, but all of them. All of the turkeys. Ow, I just hit my light with my hand. Anyway, moving swiftly along. Our main character dynamic is now set, with Reggie, our reluctant straight man, and Jake, our weird, wacky, wonderful, quirky, lol random driving force. And when I say weird, I mean like this guy is on some sort of drugs or something.
We're going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu. That's right. We're going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu. Who are you talking to? This guy.
Here's the thing. I have no idea whether or not Woody Harrelson's performance in this movie is terrible, amazing, or like so bad it's good. I cannot tell. This character is such a fucking mindfuck for me. I don't know how I feel. But I think I like it. Anywho, Jake leads Reggie to a secret government facility that the great turkey, the greatest of all turkeys, told him about. Of course, it's disguised as a shed. Here we get another just great performance by Owen Wilson here.
Future paint. Secret base coat.
Aren't you supposed to be sarcastic? You know, your character doesn't actually believe that this paint is secret base coat or whatever the fuck he says. You suck. You suck at acting. The duo accidentally discovers the secret switch to gain access to the facility. You know, what's even the point of an elevator that drops at terminal velocity? That's kind of like having a balloon that is filled with cement. After finding a map with more product placement on it, Reggie attempts to trick Jake into leaving by giving him incorrect directions, because Jake can't read, I guess. But on the way to the exit, the turkeys are then attacked by the guards, which somehow forces them to run towards the time machine. I guess the guards just forgot about the turkeys in their top secret time machine base? Or maybe those guys were just lazy because they managed to get spotted again, and this time they were reported. What the fuck is happening? So, they're running towards the time machine again, which is unguarded, of course. And the door to the launch bay just opens by itself, despite the fact they're in the middle of a test run. If that wasn't stupid enough, the person inside the time machine is ordered to get out of the time machine because there are turkeys in the launch bay. Why? And now someone has been sent into the launch bay to save the guy who was in the time machine because the time machine is causing a tornado but the door to the launch bay is closed, so where are they supposed to go? Nothing about this makes sense. Nothing about this scene makes sense. Alright, okay. It's over now. Finally. The time machine reveals itself to be named Steve, the space-time envoy guiding evasion something. Whatever. Played by George Takei, and were taken to Plymouth Colony, 1621, which is the location of the first Thanksgiving, by the way, at least in the U.S. And we finally enter the second act, 24 minutes in. The movie is almost a quarter of the way done, and we are just now getting to the main location of the film. Which makes sense if you think about it, because we basically just watched two separate Act 1s. Think about it. The farm and the part on Camp David. I don't know why the movie didn't just start with Reggie as a pet turkey, because that would also set up his character arc a lot better, being someone who is alone and needs to learn friendship, instead of being somebody who was part of a flock, hated it, had a semi-character arc by learning that he needed to live for himself, and then having another character arc that he has to learn to trust other people again? So, yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is that the first 7 minutes of this movie on the farm are completely worthless, and they are just a waste of time. Also, the entire secret base sequence, as I mentioned before, is dumb and makes no sense. Reggie lying about the direction to the time machine is never brought up again. He's never called out for this lie. The guards are fucking dumb, stupid idiots, and the time machine sequence is probably the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And none of the jokes are really funny enough to justify the time spent here. I will admit that I do enjoy from when Reggie gets to Camp David to the time they get into the facility. That's great. I think that part's fine. It's funny. It's moving the story along. We're getting introduced to our characters. It's establishing Reggie's character arc. That part's fine. It's just the farm and the secret base section are kind of worthless. If I were in the writer's chair, I would axe the farm section, keep everything after Reggie gets to Camp David, and then keep everything until Reggie and Jake enter the facility. When they do enter the facility, trim all of the fat and just make it so they get into the time machine, and then bam. That's a much more concise, better Act 1. But enough about Act 1. We're on to Act 2 now, which is the most important part of a story, typically the longest part too. So let's see if the film can redeem itself after this below average start. So our duo walk around 1620 Plymouth woods and are attacked by our main antagonist, Miles Standish, played by Colm Meaney, who tries to kill them. Fortunately for them, they're saved in the nick of time by these Native American turkeys. Huh. Is this racist? I don't think this is racist, but this might be racist. Anyways, Reggie's is saved by this girl, Jenny, played by Amy Poehler, while Jake is saved by this guy, Ranger, played by Jimmy Hayward. They say they're in the middle of a mission to lead the hunters away from their nests as they start to run through the treetops. During this, we see the start of a romantic dynamic between Reggie and Jenny, as well as a rivalry brewing between Jake and Ranger, with Jake repeating the orders that Ranger gives the flock, which I thought was kind of charming. The turkeys are forced to run through a field of tall grass, but unfortunately these two guys here get captured. The turkeys regroup in a cave, and Jake says they should attack the village to save the captured turkeys, but Ranger says they should return home, resulting in a very odd fight scene between the two. Eventually, Jenny is able to calm them down and return to the nest. Honestly, so far so good. I feel like the dynamic between Jake and Ranger is pretty great, even if that fight scene was kind of awkward. Like, even more awkward than usual for this movie.
Reggie and Jenny are okay. I think I would like them more if Owen Wilson's performance just wasn't so
fucking bad. In fact, I would argue that his lack of effort is brought out even more by the fact that he's being paired with Amy Poehler, who's actually kind of, trying. It's a shame she isn't really given anything funny to say. She's mostly just a bland love interest, so much so that it's a bit jarring, honestly. She doesn't really fit into this quirky main cast. I feel like it would make more sense if she were more positive and energetic, maybe a little bit eccentric, so that way she would contrast to Reggie's straight man act, while also being a comedic foil to her brother. It's not all bad, though. Reggie and Jenny do have some chemistry, which is mildly pleasant to watch. Still, it feels like a bit of a waste, gotta say. Anyways, we cut to Plymouth Colony and see the settlers have started a mob urging Governor Bradford, played by Dan Fogler, to let them eat the food in storage. Mr. Fogler does a great job, by the way. The scene of Bradford explaining to the settlers that they need the food for the feast with the Native Americans is hilarious.
3 days! That's it! I promise. You can all hold out.
Yes, Governor Bradford is right. We can all hold out.
Except for Clancy. But he was sick on the boat, so that's not on me.
But yeah, we're told if Plymouth Colony can't form an alliance with the Native Americans, they won't have enough food for the winter. Fortunately for Governor Bradford, Standish returned to camp seconds before the mob takes the food by force. The town is understandably disappointed with the meager bounty, but Standish promises them that he can get them the turkeys. After that break, we're brought to the main nest of the turkeys.
Hello, wild, undomesticated, simple turkeys from the distant past.
Okay, that is definitely racist. Here they meet Chief Broadbeak, the leader of the flock. He's also Jenny and Ranger's dad.
Father?
Yeah. She is a dad. Broadbeak shows our heroes around and tells them that their flock does not attack, they only defend. We also get a scene with Jenny showing Reggie the children's area.
Oh, she wants you to throw up some worms into her mouth. What girl wouldn't?
Wow. Great flirting technique there. That would kind of be like me saying, aw, he wants you to breastfeed him. What guy wouldn't? I'd probably be thrown in jail if I said that. Understandably so. But I digress. We cut back to Plymouth again to see what Standish is up to. Side note, I love Mr. Meany's performance. It's just so British.
You're thinking about where them turkeys are. And not where they ain't.
Anyways, Standish basically acknowledges the fact that the turkeys are leading them away from the nest and decides to change up his hunting locations. We cut back to the nest again. Kind of weird now that I think about it. We cut from the nest to the village, back to the nest, just to cut back to the village again? Okay, I mean, it's not distracting or anything, it's just a little bit weird. But ignoring that, we see that Jenny is told to disarm traps with Reggie, and Jake is told to scout the colony with Ranger. We get a scene where Jake and Ranger throw themselves down a hill, which is, The slapstick's pretty bland, which is a shame because the next scene we start with another slapstick sequence where Reggie is accidentally disarming traps as he flails about uncontrollably. Unlike the Jake and Ranger hill sequence just before this, I think this one actually had some potential, with the unique designs of the traps possibly making for some cool moments. But no, we barely even get to see anything. Most of the cool trap stuff happens off screen. What a waste. We then cut back to Jake and Ranger. Even though Reggie and Jenny were kinda in the middle of a conversation, okay. They have a decent comedy dance sequence, then we cut back to Jenny and Reggie again for like the third time in the last 5 minutes. Okay, now this editing is starting to get a little annoying. Anywho, the duo are chased by Standish and his dogs, and choose to hide inside Steve. Sounds kinda weird when you say it out loud. But he then takes them to space! And they have kind of a romantic scene, except the writing is bad, and Owen Wilson just wants to go home. As they return to the surface, Steve says that he's fully recharged, though Reggie stays for the moment to try to convince Jenny to join him in the future. I believe his exact quote was, "I don't want to leave half-cocked."
Yeah, we don't want to go flying off half-cocked, right?
Okay, sure, whatever you say, buddy. We then cut again to Jake and Ranger. all that really happens here is that Jake learns where the colonists are keeping the gunpowder and their weapons. Guess what happens next? You won't believe it. We then cut again, after all of 30 seconds, back to Reggie and Jenny. Reggie offers to take her to the future, and Jenny says that she would only consider it if the safety of the flock could be guaranteed. Jake then just kind of yanks Reggie away during the middle of the scene, so they can stop Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow, at this point in the film. Jake also takes the time to tell us his backstory. Jake grew up in a factory farm, and on one fateful night, his mother tells him he needs to take some eggs and escape. Hey, pro tip, if you want someone to escape a guarded facility, maybe don't chant their name super loudly. Not that it matters, because Jake somehow manages to stumble into the only person on the floor. Because of this, Jake himself is able to escape, but is forced to abandon the eggs. I'm not entirely sure what is preventing these guys from opening the gate and scooping Jake up, but whatever. As Jake walks away in shame, he is visited by the Great Turkey, the greatest of all turkeys, who tells him to stop Thanksgiving and to never, ever give up. Jake also tells Reggie his plan to destroy the weapons, and Reggie agrees to help. The scene of them breaking into the settlement is pretty great. There's a few decent jokes and bonus points for reincorporating the TV remote from Act 1. The duo go to rig the explosives with Reggie taking care of the weapons hut, while Jake goes to Standish's wagon, which is where he lives, I guess. As Standish is sleeping, Jake gets a bit greedy and attempts to steal his powder horn, which actually goes off without a hitch, and a neat little Raiders of the Lost Ark homage. He also frees those captured turkeys from before. They then leave and light the explosives. I guess they were just planning to flat out murder Standish then. Who's the real villain here? Fortunately for him, the explosion from the weapons hut woke him up, and he was able to survive. No, you can't actually expect me to believe that there would be enough black powder in that powder horn to make it all the way back to the nest. Do you see that thing? A fucking turkey could hold it in its wing. But I digress. Reggie and Jake make it back to the nest and tell the tribe what they did, causing them to celebrate. I guess we're just gonna forget about what Leatherbeak said less than 20 minutes ago.
We do not fight. We defend. We protect. And we survive.
Could have just cut that line and there'd be no issue, but whatever. We then cut back to Plymouth to see how the colonists are dealing with the aftermath. We get some more of that great Governor Bradford and Standish interaction from before, with Standish explaining how the turkeys are magical and shit. It's pretty great.
It was those bleeding birds. You mean turkeys did this?
Standish then discovers the trail left by Jake and, yep, somehow that fucking tiny horn was able to hold enough gunpowder to lead Standish all the way to the nest. Though I do like how Standish uses that match he's been carrying in his mouth to light it up. Nice touch. The hunters storm the nest in a sequence that is played way too serious for this kind of movie. It's pretty jarring going from a pretty goofy action sequence to a super duper dramatic one with this orchestral score and fire and burning alive and shit. But at least Jake gets a nice little redemption as he's the one who saves the children. Leatherbeak then sacrifices himself for some reason. Initially, he holds up some falling debris so that the others can escape, and just kind of chooses to keep holding it up afterwards. Why couldn't you just drop the logs and escape with everyone else? In fact, that would make it better because then the dogs wouldn't be able to get through, so everyone would be more safe, because if the dogs decided to jump down the hole, then they would be able to kill everyone. But sure. The next day, the turkeys mourn the death of Leatherbeak, and Jenny is proclaimed the new chief because of a shell or something. I feel like this is the kind of thing that should have been set up earlier, because it kind of comes out of nowhere. Anyways, Jenny orders an attack on Plymouth to free the captured turkeys. Reggie also gets really guilty and decides to go home, despite Jake's protest. So at this point I was expecting Reggie to go home, and then he realized how much he missed Jenny, and how unhappy he was to be back in his normal life that he thought was perfect at the beginning of the film. You know, classic character arc moment. Except instead of that, this happens?
Hey!
Hey, wait!
I actually really like this scene where Reggie gets a pep talk from himself. Yeah, it would have been more emotionally impactful if Reggie came to this conclusion on his own by experiencing his old life and realizing that he's unfulfilled. But it's something I genuinely wasn't expecting and is actually really funny. Reggie also figures out that he was the great turkey this whole time and needs to go back to tell Jake all that crap about doorknobs or whatever. Next up is a scene where Jake comes back to the flock, and once again, I was expecting Jake to have to give a whole speech about how sorry he is, and how he wants to help in order for Ranger to forgive him. But no, instead we see Ranger just forgive him in a really good scene with no dialogue. It's actually really nice seeing both these characters put aside their differences for the sake of the flock. So we end Act 2 with both of our characters motivated to fight. While I think that it's better than Act 1, it still has a few strange choices in it. The constant switching between character duos makes it pretty hard to get invested in any particular scene. This is compounded by the fact that the film tries to cram a lot into the second act. Think about it. We have the rivalry between Jake and Ranger, the romance between Reggie and Jenny, and the blossoming friendship between Reggie and Jake, on top of all the scenes with Standish and Bradford back at Plymouth. None of these dynamics really have time to become anything worthwhile, and you're just left with a bunch of decently funny concepts, but no time to flesh them out. Well, that's the main issue that I have with the second act. I think it's also worth restating that the tone of the Nest Raid clashes with the rest of the movie hard. But after that, I don't really have any complaints. The second act low and its resolution are handled pretty well. So we finally move on to the climax with only about 15 minutes left in the film. So we start Act 3 with the flock launching flaming pumpkins at the settlers. Upon seeing this, Standish orders them to bring out the cannons. Thankfully, just before the cannonballs are about to hit the turkeys, they just kind of stop. The editing implies that Steve is doing this somehow, even though the only thing affected are the cannonballs. Sure. A giant time tornado then appears in the clouds, which starts to suck up the cannons, and only the cannons, which for some reason prompts Standish to jump onto one of the cannons and attempt to fire it again. Did you forget you need to reload the cannon before you fire it again? Also, why on earth would you think it's a good idea to grab an object that's floating towards a giant sky tornado? So, yeah, obviously he dies by getting sucked into the tornado, which just really likes cannons and nothing else, I guess. And that's it. That's the climax. The most memorable, impactful part of most films is over in less than 5 minutes here. Talk about fucking lame. Reggie arrives with boxes upon boxes full of Chuck E. Cheese pizza for all the humans to feast on, and they accept him as the great turkey. The greatest of all turkeys. All the turkeys are set free as everyone chows down. Turkeys have been successfully taken off the menu. Jake then heads back to the future while Reggie stays behind with Jenny. And credits. Now with the plot out of the way, it's time to talk about everything else. Let's start with the animation. The actual professional quality of the animation is pretty decent considering the budget and the 2013 release. However, it does tend to go downhill during those emotional scenes. It's to the point where they come off as unengaging at best and awkward at worst. Unfortunately, I think that's the most positive thing I could say about the presentation. There's nothing really creative about the visuals or sound design in this movie. The character designs are so basic, you could probably find these models available to download online. Even the most uniquely designed character, Standish, is just your basic scar-having, black hat-wearing villain. Except he has heterochromia. The set design, when there is a set and not just a black void, is usually just a room filled with the bare minimum for what the story needs to progress, and nothing else. Or it's just outside. The lighting is equally bare bones. When there is lighting, and not just a black void, It's just light. And in some scenes, it's a different color. Yay. The colors, when there are colors, and not just a black void, are brown. Brown, 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 brown. And if you're a good little boy, you might just be able to see some black. Wow, 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 wow. So inspired. Good job. The music is just your basic orchestra. I can't even be bothered to think of a new way to call it boring. So I'm just going to skip ahead to the conclusion. So, was it worth it? Was it worth my time to watch Freebirds? Honestly, no. And it pains me to say that because I think this film has a pretty solid foundation. A good premise, solid characters, decent actors and animation. All ruined by the terrible pacing, flat writing, tonal inconsistencies, a complete lack of visual creativity, and Owen Wilson. Whenever I analyze movies, I always like to summarize my thoughts in one word, and for Freebirds, that word would be misguided. They leaned way too far into the drama aspects, which caused them to waste valuable movie time on quote-unquote emotional moments that feel totally empty. Here's how I would go fixing the drama issues. Cut the first 7 minutes, cut the Ranger and Jake subplot, cut the Jenny and Reggie romance, and change the raid on the nest to a quirky action scene. I think Jake's backstory is fine as it is, because it's pretty short and explains why he's so determined to stop Thanksgiving other than, "The Great Turkey told him to." The time saved from covering these subplots should go to Jake and Reggie forming a budding friendship, and to fleshing out Bradford and Standish just a wee bit more. And hey, while we're making changes, how about giving us more than like 2 colors at a time? Get these turkeys out of this disgusting brown hole and into the beautiful autumn treetops. They gotta have like Tree Hut's Return of the Jedi style or something. And hey, how about giving us a climax? I think that would be neat. So yeah, it's pretty obvious why this film isn't talked about much nowadays. It has some pretty great scenes, but that just got buried under a bunch of But despite the film's faults, I still kinda enjoyed it. And I'm not sure I can explain why. Maybe it was just the right combination of legitimate and ironic enjoyment for me to overlook many of the flaws brought up in this video and just go along for the ride. Not to say Freebirds is an ironic masterpiece, but if you have a soft spot for movies like this, then I think I can recommend it. Just don't expect too much. That said, I really don't see what this film did to warrant the 20% score on Rotten Tomatoes. I think the 5.8 on IMDb is a lot more fitting. And finally, to end this video on Freebirds, I thought I would read this user review that summarizes my thoughts on this film perfectly. Freebirds is one of the most intelligent movies to date. Warning, contains spoilers. If you are looking to teach your children about vegetarianism, animal rights, atheism, feminism, not blindly following someone, whether it be the Great Turkey or the government, while also being entertained by satire or a critique on bro culture, then this movie is for you. I've seen a lot of children's movies, and I've come to realize that the scriptwriters, directors, and producers, the good ones at least, know that they are really making movies that should also entertain adults, since they are the ones paying for the children to watch them. That being said, there are some major differences for movies that are more intellectual than cartoons purely for children. Movies made for children, yet have enough adult humor and a complex enough storyline for adults, is hard to find. Ergo, anyone who doesn't understand the complexities of the movie Freebirds might be lacking a little in the department upstairs. Freebirds is a movie I would show my children. It is a extremely good moral film, and ethics take center stage. Reggie, the intelligent turkey, ostracized by his witless peers for trying to warn them that they will get eaten and won't go to turkey paradise when they reach the little shack on their farm, or that the corn fire in the sky, told to the masses by the turkey on the rock. Hint! This turkey symbolizes a preacher and religion. Is actually a son. Is a great role model for young children who are gifted and find it hard to fit in with their peer groups. He is the true hero of the movie, even though, as he says to Jenny, his female turkey love interest, that he doesn't have any muscles. He is the epitome of the quote, "Those who are best suited to power are those who do not seek it." Jake, who is Reggie's comrade in the film, is a more brawn than brains type of character that, while with good intentions at heart, blindly follows the great turkey in his blindly follows the great turkey in realizing his destiny in saving turkeys from being eaten at Thanksgiving. The great turkey appears to Jake after he escapes from a terrible factory for mass-producing poultry, and the great turkey appears before him in a halo of light, giving him his mission, a magical doorknob, and also to never give up. Jake also blindly follows authority, the great turkey, and asks the turkeys to blindly follow him into war as well. They respond by asking important questions.
What's Thanksgiving?
Yeah, that's right. It hasn't happened yet. It's a feast of sorts.
What's a menu?
A menu, it's like a list of food items in a restaurant.
What's a restaurant?
That's not important.
Both are great characters, and the differences among them are worth noting when it comes to their mistakes in the film. Jake makes the mistake of wanting glory and mistakenly leads the hunters directly to the turkey village in the tree by a trail of powder from the horn he brings back to prove his feat. Reggie, on the other hand, is intelligent, but gives up too quickly when he could have stayed. Both are real-life mistakes that people make, and are a great teaching moment for children. Another teaching moment for children is that when Reggie undoes the trap set by the hunters, he does it by luck. A good moral lesson, because only an idealist thinks anyone can do anything by only pure hard work. Many successful people also had a bit of luck. I especially like how at the moment a new chief is decided, it is the female turkey, Jenny, who is chosen, and not her brawny brother, who was expected to become chief. Once again, another teaching moment for children about sexism and feminism, and that women can be leaders. Great leaders as well. Jenny also does not get distracted by Reggie when he flirts with her, even though evidently she and him are a happy couple. When Reggie finds out it was actually him that was the great turkey due to time travel, it was a great moment for teaching children about atheism. For those who do not believe in a god or gods, theists or agnostics can still use this opportunity to teach children about different ways of viewing the world so that their child can make informed decisions. There is much to be loved about the simple humor in the film. I found the characters that were people, the pizza delivery boy, the general who has issues, and the president's daughter were spot on in terms of reality, were well versed in adult satire. The television blaring, the pizza replacing the turkey. Anyone who is a foodie must know how gross American fast food pizza be and wonder how it can be so ubiquitous in American culture. I'd continue, but I'd spoil the fun for those who haven't watched it yet. It is also a great teaching tool for those who want to make their children aware of animal ethics. Treatment and consumption of animals and animal product vegetarians should delight at this movie. I rarely give movies 10 out of 10, but there are so many moral lessons in this movie that are not so easily apparent to the average American viewer. IQs in the US average at about 98. Chew on that while munching your pizza and guzzling your soft drink. or their children. But for those with IQs a little higher, this movie is a great film for both adults and children. It is a great Thanksgiving film, and hopefully, instead of meat, pizza or tofu could be served on the Thanksgiving menu. For those with IQs on the more average side, I'm sure the visual effects will satisfy. Although it's not a Michael Bay film. Perhaps the turkeys catapulting flaming pumpkins, or the squirrels applauding, will be enough for you simpletons! This fucking review, man. This review. Who wrote this? Ari Glavy, what? Why? Why would you write this? Sorry guys, I guess my IQ's just not high enough to understand the moral complexities Freebird's questions, whatever the fuck this person is saying. Well, that's it for the video. I'm gonna go cry after reading this review. Bye.